The title for today's lesson is The Identity of Love. The Identity of Love. So, we're going to start out with a little question, okay? Are there any procrastinators in here? Anyone with every hand? Why are we all procrastinators? And for my fellow procrastinators in the room, you remember those days when there's this research project, a big project of the year, and it's late at night, and you realize you've had 2 months to do this project, it's due tomorrow, and you've done nothing. You know what I'm talking about? And you kind of realize, oh no, it's due tomorrow. I've done nothing. You know what I'm talking about? And then what do? You try to scramble, right? And in high school, there was this thing for us procrastinators called Spark Notes. Y'all remember that? Remember that? You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to read the book. You can just go check out the Spark Notes. Then you make up some stuff. You pull you read the first paragraph of the book and the last paragraph. You make sure to quote those and just fluff it out. You know what I'm saying? Hugh, you've never procrastinated in your life. You are the hardest worker in here, bro. Don't lie.
It depends on what. But it's not a pattern in his life.
Okay, there you go. So, y'all know what I'm talking about, though. Actually, I was talking to Max earlier today. He said, bro, I didn't use Spark Notes. That wasn't good enough for me. I used Thug Notes. He said, check it out. It's legit. Apparently, it's a YouTube thing. You don't need to check it out right now, Cameron Hoffman. You can check it out later. It's actually entertaining. But, oh man, but there was always a way you wanted to sneak around, to get the short version in order to get on the test, in order to write the paper. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? So here's my question. Not that you're procrastinators with Jesus, right? But if you were gonna sum up the whole Bible in a Spark Notes, right? And you only had 2 sentences, and you had to sum it up for someone. Hey, what does your relationship with God look like? And you had 2 sentences. All right? Actually, when you stop and think for a second, if you got a pen or paper, you got a phone, I want you to write down, what would your 2 sentences be? If you had to sum up what a relationship with God was all about, what it needed to be, what you needed to do, what does a relationship with God look like? You had to sum it up in 2 sentences. What would it be? Okay, listen, it's not that intense. All right? We don't have a word count. It's a double space, it's a 12-point font. No, we're not doing that.
Can I use semicolon?
Why do you know the average is 2 words? Anybody want to share theirs? We're not looking for a right answer here. You're not going to get graded on this. Yeah, Bombadi, go for it.
If you're human, you're going to mess up, but there's grace because God loves you.
Hey, there you go. That's solid. Anybody else want to share theirs?
That's one sentence.
No, the Bible is.
Yeah.
I
was what?
I was wilding.
I was wilding. And God is good. Nice. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I thought you said balling too. That doesn't make sense.
Bro, balling hasn't
So, Cal, go for it, bro.
I'm dumb. God saves dumb people.
All those are true. I like those. You can do next week's lesson, all right? Jesus actually gives us his, all right? And what a lot of you guys did is talk about God, our own messed upness and how God was great, right? Jesus is more summing up what a relationship with God should look like from our end, all right? So Matthew 22, if there was ever a Spark Notes or Thug Notes of the Bible, then it's right here, okay? Matthew 22 in verse 34. Hearing that Jesus silenced the Sadducees were one of the religious sects then that had there were certain type of teachers amongst the religious system in Jerusalem. The Pharisees got together, another religious sect. Their politics were religious back then. You can almost think Republicans and Democrats. It had nothing to do with our version of Republican and Democrats, but it's kind of these 2 different parties in the religious system. Okay, so the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? That was the closest thing you get to Spark Notes on To Kill a Mockingbird, right? Give me the short version, right? Check out what Jesus says in verse 37. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. This passage is just so powerful, right? And did you catch the Spark Notes-esque line that he gives, right? Where he says, from these two commandments, these two sentences, these two very, very simple sentences, that all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. If you're new to Christianity, you might be wondering, well, what in the world is the law and the prophets, right? The law and the prophets is in the Old Testament. So Matthew, right, is the first book of the New Testament, right? That's Matthew. And then the law and the prophets, you can also say in the writings, are all the Old Testament. So all of that. It's more than half of your entire Bible. It's 1,000 years of God speaking to man. It's 1,000 years of the prophets of Elijah and Elisha, of great kings like David and Saul, of Moses as the first patriarch, of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. All of that, the entire story of God and man, the Spark Notes version, can be summed up in two sentences. If I want to have a relationship with God, and I procrastinated, what do you do, right? Okay, I hope we don't procrastinate. That's not the point of this. But Jesus says all of that can be summed up in these very two simple things. To love God. Look back at your scripture. Love God with all of your what? And all of your The second, this is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is equally like it, to love who? Your neighbor as yourself, right? This is the greatest commandment of all time. And the thing that I love about this is that what Jesus says, especially in the Bible Belt South, where we can reduce our religion to a set of rules. And the two things he says you have to do that are most important, it's all about love. It's not about rules. It's about relationship. It's not about it's not about this religious ideologies to follow, but it's about this relationship to love and enjoy and to embrace. I love that. This is the greatest thing in the Bible, to love. So let's do a little sidetrack, all right? If I were to name some guys like LeBron James, Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps, like Bill Gates, Michael Jackson, I was naming some guys like that, right? And if I were to name some girls like Serena Williams or Simone Biles or even Beyonce, like girls like that, what do all of them have in common? They're what? They're amazing. They're what? They're famous, they're rich, what else?
The best at what they do.
They are the best at what they do. Why are they the best at what they do? Because they put time into it? Why else are they the best at what they do? The dedication, what? Wait, what did she say that was wrong?
Genetics.
Yeah.
Natural genetics, okay. Well, natural genetics isn't enough, you know what I'm saying? Why are they the greatest at what they do?
They love it.
They love it, they discipline.
They're not procrastinating.
They're not procrastinating. Hey, good connection, bro. That's actually not what I was gonna say, but good job, bro. You know?
Well, Simone Biles will work.
Okay, how about this? They give their all to their task. They give their all to the thing that they do, right? They're the first ones to show up in the gym. They're the last ones to leave. They're the ones that stay up late into the night, that won't put the project down until it's done. And when they're writing a song, they're the ones that won't give up on it until it's the greatest as possible. They sacrifice their time, they sacrifice their comfort, they sacrifice their interest to give their all to this something. They're even willing to take risks for this something. And they were willing to say, you know what, there's no plan B, right? Like, I'm giving my all. If this doesn't work out, I don't know what I'm going to do. They gave their very all to it. They had no backup plan. And what happened? They achieved greatness. They achieved glory in their field. Now, have you ever given your all to something? And did you say sleep? You know, if anything has characterized this generation, we love giving our all to our sleep. Oh my. I think all of us are giving our all to something for a little bit of time. Maybe it's been a particular workout. Maybe it's been for a couple days for a test. Maybe it's been for anime. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? Maybe it's been for a week for exams or something like that. If you're an Emory and it's destroying you, right? Like, there's a couple of us, right, that have given our all for a short period of time. But what I'm talking about is to give your all to something over a long period of time. Have you ever given your all to something that's been a commitment that you've never backed down from? That you've said, there's no plan B. I will never stop. I'm giving my everything. I'm all in. Because the reality is to do that is a giant risk. And I don't know about you, but for me, most of my life, I did not give my all to stuff because it was scary. And what I mean by that is that if I give my all to a test, for instance, then if I gave 100% to it and I failed, that means 100% of me wasn't good enough. But if I gave only 60% of my effort to the test and I reserved some in the tank, then if I failed, oh, it's okay. Because only 60% of me failed, I'm sure that if I gave my all, then I would have succeeded. Has anyone else ever done that? Man, it's risky to give your all. How about in relationships? Have you ever been in a relationship and hesitated giving your all or being completely vulnerable to somebody? Because when you give your all, you give your all to them, then you risk them being able to hurt you. And you risk them having, in one sense, a control, or at least a major influence over your hearts. And so we want to hide something. We put up walls. We want to reserve a portion for ourselves. We only want to give part of ourselves so that we won't get hurt. You guys know what I'm talking about? Have you ever given your all to something? I would say that our generation can get so much validation from the internet, like so much validation from social media, so much validation from Netflix, so much encouragement and support personally through all these kinds of different things online, that we very rarely feel like we ever have to give our all to something that's worth risking, because when we're behind a computer on our screen, there's no danger. I can look on people's pages, I can look at different things. Even honestly, the whole like online impurity scene is hugely there because it's not risky. Even though all impurity is wrong, right? But instead of me risking going and trying to hook up with a girl, why don't I do something online, because then I'm not going to get hurt? Like, so much of our culture, and both are wrong, praise God. I'm not saying, right? Y'all okay. Don't get me confused, right? I'm not saying go risk it and hook up with a girl. That's whoa. Okay. All right. But man, giving your all to something is risky. So often we only give a part of ourselves as a safety net, so we can protect ourselves. Let's go back to Matthew. Let's look at it again.
Come on, Jordan.
Matthew 22, verse 37. Right? Jesus replied, it's not just about love. Love the Lord your God. That's the central point of this verse. Is what this whole verse is about. It's about love. It's about relationship. But he also tells us how to love. Right? He doesn't just say to love with our heart, or to love with our soul, or to love with our mind. But he says to love the Lord your God with how much? All of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. There's no reservations in our love for God. There's no holding back. We go all in. We give our everything. There's no plan B in our love for God. There's no, well, if this doesn't work out, well, then I got this side hustle, or I got this chick over here, I got this school over here. It's my all. Like, if it doesn't work out with him, my life doesn't work out. If I fail with him, then I fail. Like, there's no turning back. There's nothing I hold back. It is everything I have. It's my all. And I mean, he doesn't even just say, love God with your all. He kind of goes through. I mean, we could spend some time. What is the difference between loving your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind? And then over in Mark it says with all your strength. Like, why does he break those things down? I mean, we could go through, there's some theology there, with like what he's trying to get at with all of that. But the reality is, I think the biggest reason he goes through all that is just saying, there's nothing you don't love God with. There's not a single piece of your being, there's not a single piece of your identity that you don't give to God.
Yeah.
It's your all. You guys following me?
Yeah,
It's your all. The central idea of all this is relationship. He says the spark notes, if they only knew one thing about Christianity, it's to give your very best to God. To give your all to God. To not hold anything bad. But that draws the question, why would you give your all to God? Why would you give him your everything? And that is partly when we wrote our Spark Notes versions, right? Like, I am dumb, but Jesus is not, or I was wild, and you know what I mean? Like, that's part of it, right? So I have a 3-year-old son, right? And he recently has discovered that I can catch him off of most things, right? And so he loves running and jumping off of stairs into my arms. And sometimes I don't even know he's doing it. I just hear a, ah! I'm like, oh my gosh, right? Like, I have to catch him. Or I'll be literally over here, he'll jump into my shoulder, I'm like, whoop! You know, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And anyway, but he's learned to trust me, right? And to jump off of things into my arms. Actually, if I wasn't there, I think he would get extremely hurt sometimes off the things he jumps off of, right? I have a 3-year-old son, Camden, if you haven't heard me talk about him before. He actually fell down the stairs for the first time the other day. All we heard was, why is that fun?
No! There's just something about pain.
There's just something about, I don't know how to handle that laugh. You're forgiven. Whoever did that.
No.
Oh my. It was actually terrifying. Anyways, he's okay. All right.
Not funny.
You're okay.
It's not funny.
Cam is willing to jump into thin air down a flight of steps to go all in. No holding back. In the air, he can't go like a jump off and go, oh, I think I want to go back. Right? He can't. Once he's in the air, he's in the air. Why does he do that? It's because he trusts me as his father. Because he trusts that I'll catch him. He trusts in my strength. He trusts in my love for him. He trusts that I will always be there. Even when I'm not looking, he trusts that he can jump. And then I will catch him, no matter what. Guys, the same thing is true of Jesus. Why are we willing to give him our all? Because I think for some of us, if you're like me, you might not have given your all, like actually, like maybe you haven't ever really admitted it, but you like me, you might have been holding back a piece of you your entire life out of fear of failure. So why would you be willing to, with reckless abandon, go all in for Jesus? It's because you can trust Jesus more than anyone else on the face of the planet. You can trust him and his love over everything. Why do we know that? Well, it's because he gave his love to us first. He's given us his all to him on the cross. He recklessly abandoned his life first for us. You will never love Jesus first. Isn't that kind of mind-boggling? You know, like in a relationship, sometimes, well, I don't know if she likes me, so I don't know if I should go for it, right? Like, you never have to question. Like, he will always love you first. There's this game one of my buddies used to do. He had this game. He was like, I would try to outlove Jesus, or I would try to outgive Jesus. And then he was like, I never works. I always feel that I love doing it. Like, it's just, you will never outlove Jesus. You'll never outlove his love for you. I mean, it is incredible. You can trust him. It's a matter of trust. Do you trust in Jesus enough to give him your all? Do you trust in Jesus enough to say, I'm not going to do life my own way. I'm going to go all in and do life his way. I'm not going to love me more than I love him. Because isn't that usually the hardest thing? Where I'm not going to, I'm only going to give so much to school because I leave some for myself. I'm only going to give so much to dating relationship because I leave some time for me. I'm only going to give so much to the sport because I got to have time. Like, I got to make sure to fight for me. You know what I'm talking about? To say I'm not even going to love myself compared to how much I love Jesus. Why can you do that? It's because he will always catch you. And while if you give your all to a test, you might fail. If you give your all to a sport, you might miss that shot. If you give your all to a relationship, they might break up. If you give your all to Jesus, he will never fail you. You can always trust him. Amen, guys?
Amen.